we wait for another faithful son or daughter of ours. Praise the Lord. I am privileged to welcome one of our wonderful daughters, Ashley Kehinde, to come and speak from the Lord.
Good morning, church. Good morning. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. So, as we already recapped, Jordan taught us about temptation, and then Justice taught us about faith and how the men of God use their faith in the Bible, and we were able to learn about that last week. So this week we're going to be talking about a heart of gratitude. So before we start, can we bow our heads in prayer? So Lord, we thank you for the gift of your word. You spoke the word into existence in Genesis 1. You speak new life into your children to give us the light of the knowledge of your glory. Give us the grace to receive your word. As we think on these things, open our hearts, open our minds to hear you. In Jesus' name. Amen. So like I said, the topic for today is a heart of gratitude. And I had to go again to see what gratitude is so I can get a really good definition for you. So according to the New Oxford American Dictionary, it says a heart of gratitude is the ability to be thankful, a readiness to show appreciation for and to return kindness. So as I told you the definition, does anyone have a small experience or a big experience on just any gratitude that they've experienced that they would like to share? Okay. I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for my family. I have an amazing family. I'm grateful for my friends. And I'm also grateful to be in this church, because this church is such a beautiful place to be. There's so many people to be mentors. There's so many people to ask for help. You can call one or two people and someone will be there to help you in any situation you find yourself in. And that's an amazing place to be, in my opinion. So, as I've explained some examples of gratitude, now let's look into the Bible to find some examples of gratitude. So the first verse I'm going to be looking at is Luke 17, verse 11 to 19. So Luke 17, verse 11 to 19. Luke 17, verse 11 to 19. Would anyone like to read for us?
And it came to pass, as he went to Jerusalem, that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers, which stood afar off. And they lifted up their voices and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said unto them, Go, show yourself unto the priests. And it came to pass that as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, and with a loud voice glorified God, and fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan.
And Jesus answering said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? There are not found that return to give glory to God, save this stranger. And he said unto him, Arise, go thy way, thy faith has made thee whole.
Thank you for reading that. So, this verse is talked about the 10 lepers and how they found themselves ill, and they found an opportunity to say that to receive a new blessing, a new cleansing from God. And when one of them found out that, all of them, first they saw God and they asked God, well, Jesus, have mercy on us, is what they said. And when they realized that Jesus has cleansed them and has delivered them from this illness that they found himself in, only one person decided to return, to thank God and to glorify God for this new blessing, this new cleansing that he has received. And Jesus had to question himself and ask, weren't they 10 people cleansed? Well, I only see one in front of me, basically. And this is powerful too, because we see here that Jesus cares about us being grateful. He cares about us showing our appreciation in whatever things that we get from him. It could be the littlest things, but it's always important to come back and say, God, I thank you for whatever it is, for the air I breathe in, for the steps I make every morning, just thanking God for everything. So we also see here that Jesus said in verse 9, and he said to him, arise, go your way, your faith has made you well. And with the verse that we heard is, it said, your faith has made you whole. And this is very important because, like I said, just this taught us about faith last week and how people use their faith in the Bible and how they worked with God. And this is telling us that your faith made you whole. It's very important to think about how faith and grateful goes together. You know, if you're faithful in God and you continue to work with God, your faith is what's going to strengthen you. It's going to be what brings you the new blessings, the new cleansing that you want in your life. So it's very important to be faithful and to be grateful, because our gratefulness and our appreciation is noticed, you know. Because just one person coming back is a very important thing. Because if 10, like in a room like this, if only one person comes back, that person is going to be highly noticed and will continue receiving more blessings and more cleansing from God. So, the next example that we see in the Bible is going to be seen in Luke 18, verse 9 to 14. Luke 18, 9 to 14. Would anyone like to read that first?
He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous. They treated others with contempt.
2 men went into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, prayed, saying, God, I thank you that I am not like the other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I get. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift his eyes to the heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted.
Thank you for reading that. And so, in these verses, we are learning about the Pharisee and the tax collector, and how 2 different people came in to pray for God. Both are praying in 2 different ways. We see that the Pharisee he's grateful for what God has done for him, because he does say, he thanks God. But we also see that he's boastful and he's very prideful. He's telling God, oh, I'm not like this person, I'm not unjust, I'm not like the tax collector, you know. And he's saying that he's not an adulterer, and he's telling God all these amazing things that he does. He fasts, he pays his tithe. You know, those are all good things, but it's the way it's said and it's the attitude put it behind it, the way he says it. While we see the tax collector, he couldn't even look up at God. He couldn't look up to the heavens. He had to ask God for mercy. And he calls himself a sinner as he's asking God for mercy. And we see that he's very humble. He's vulnerable. He shows God that, you know, he's not perfect. He's not trying to be who he's not. And he's just trying to show God that this is who he is, and just have mercy, you know, have mercy, because he's a sinner. So it's very important to see the contrast between two of them, how one is very boastful and prideful about all the things he's done and all the things he's accomplished. It's not a bad thing to be to tell all the things that you have accomplished, but it's the way it's said. And then in verse 14, we see that it tells us basically who we want to be. You know, it tells us if you exalt yourself, you'll be exalted by human beings. You know, if you put yourself as high as the Pharisee put himself, he's going to be exalted by human beings. Human beings will be proud of you. They're going to tell you, oh wow, you did all these things, you know, and they're going to show you what you want, because you want, if you're telling someone all these things that you've done, you're expecting something from them. You're expecting them to carry you higher than you should. So, and then we see that it also says, if you humble yourself, you will be exalted, and that's more powerful than being exalted by human beings, because celebrities are humbled by human beings, and all these famous people are humbled by human beings, or exalted by human beings. But it's more powerful to be exalted by God when you humble yourself. And so we see that we would rather be the tax collector who's very humble and very vulnerable and shows himself to God, because he's going to be exalted by God. So, I have just a little story from just a while. When we're in the old church, about maybe a couple of years back, I'm not sure when it was, but we're in the old church and a visiting pastor came to speak to us. I'm not sure what the title was, what the topic was, but it was in this realm about thanking God and about being grateful and appreciating what God has done for us. And she spoke to us she told us a story about this woman that was in labor. I'm not sure if anyone remembers this story, but she spoke to us about a woman that was in labor. And she told us about how this woman was in labor and lost her child. God forbid bad things, but that woman she lost her child. And everyone was turning around looking at this woman and saying, oh, what's going on with this woman? What's going on with her? And someone happened to ask her, and she said, I'm thanking God, and she's praying, and she's giving God all the thanks. And someone had to question her, like, what's going on? Why are you saying all this? And she said, at least someone can know that I've given birth. And I thought that was when I heard that story, I don't know how long it was, but I still remember it, because it's so important to be thankful for whatever circumstances we find ourselves in. And just for someone to be able to thank God at their lowest point, it's just amazing to me, you know, because I dwell on like the littlest things. You know, school is always a big gift to me, but just being someone thanking God when it's something that you can't even change. You know, there's some circumstances that we can change, even though we're upset about it or down about it, but we can still find a way to get better, because God doesn't give us things that we can't handle. So I thought that story was very important, because that woman thanking God in that moment could get another blessing, even another blessing that she wouldn't even have expected. You know, more cleansing. You know, and going back to the verse, it's just very important to be very thankful for all the different aspects in our lives. And yeah, I think that's let's open to verse 7:17. Psalm 7:17. Do anyone like to read that for us? Psalm 7:17.
I will give to the Lord the thanks due to his righteousness, and I will sing praise to the name of the Lord Most High.
I wanted to just put this back to the story. You know, in that situation, the woman, she was able to just sing praises to God, just appreciate God in that moment. And I just want to just put this onto us that in every moment, in whatever situation that we are in, just to sing praises to God and just to show God how appreciative we are in this moment and how much gratitude that we have in this moment. Regardless of what we saw yesterday, we should just keep moving on to what's to see tomorrow.
Amen.
So, in conclusion, can we look at Psalms 9 verse 1? It's another verse to just put everything together. Psalms 9 verse 1.
I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart.
I will recount all of your wonderful deeds.
So my Bible says, I will tell of all your marvelous works. And I think also being grateful is telling what God has done for us. You know, saying what God has done for us. Not like the way the Pharisee does it is in a different way, but we should just think about what God has done for us and say what God has done for us by testifying and just showing all our appreciation in everything that we do. So in conclusion, I wanted to just go back and look at the 10 lepers that we learned about. The 10 lepers, only one came back to glorify God, to let God know that, okay, I appreciate all this new cleansing, this new blessing you're giving to me. And he was willing to just go back, while everyone is going forward, go back and just say thank you. I feel like sometimes we are in a hurry, like, okay, I got this blessing, now I'm going to move to the next thing, now I'm going to move to the next thing, but we forgot to thank God for where we started, where we started, and thank God for even pushing us even more. And, it's always important to look back, thank God for what's behind and what's to come. So I think that the leper looking back is also a way of looking back at what we came from and where we're going. So, and then also the Pharisee and the tax collector, how we see the tax collector being humble in himself and being vulnerable. It's very important, even wherever we have got to in the point of life, whatever point we've gotten into in our lives, it's always important to just humble ourselves and just be vulnerable. We might be a millionaire or whatever we want to be in life, but it's always important to just be vulnerable and be humble because we want to be exalted by God. We shouldn't even care what human beings think about us. When we're exalted by God, that's what's more important.
Amen.
So, as I conclude, can we bow our heads in prayer? In Jesus' name. Father, Lord, help us to be more grateful.
Thank you, Lord.
Help us to have a heart of gratitude.
Amen.
Lord, as we have listened to your word today, continue to keep it in our hearts. Father, Lord, continue to straighten our works with you.
Amen.
Lord, we ask for your continuous protection, your continuous guidance,
Amen.
and your continuous blessings in everything that we do in our lives.
Amen.
God, we thank you. We thank you for everything, God. God, take all glory, take all honor, and take all adoration in our lives. In Jesus' name I pray.
Amen.